Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today what we're going to talk about are two different what I call orphans or Cinderella watches that are made by Patek Philippe. And there are two reasons that I call them this. One's been canceled, the other one just isn't very popular. But they each have certain qualities that you may be interested in. Now, today I'm wearing my Vacheron Content 10 1972, and I'll tell you why in a second. But first, let's get started on the first watch we're going to look at, and it's called the Golden Ellipse. Now, the reason it's called the Golden Ellipse has nothing to do with the color. All right? It's not because it's gold. Some of them are platinum. They may even have some made of steel, I'm not sure. But anyhow, the Golden Ellipse is a sort of, I guess you'd call it a geometric term for an eclipse that has a shape to it that is based on the ratio of a value called phi. Now, phi is what they call an irrational number, and it's based on the square root of 5 plus 1 divided by 2, okay? The number to remember is 1.618. Now that's like pi, which you probably remember from for calculating the area of a circle or something. And where this came about and it came from the ancient Greeks, and they used it a lot, and it's used today. All kinds of places that you'll find it. Okay, so back in 1968, Patek Philippe decided to make one called the Golden Ellipse, and they have the shape something like the Golden Ellipse. Now, the Golden Ellipse is one that has the ratio of the height to the width is 1.618 to 1. Okay, so that means the width is going to be narrower than the height. All right, and you can see up there in the corner Patek Philippe next to a Golden Ellipse. All right, so for dealing with also too, if you're familiar with the Fibonacci sequence, that's a series of numbers. You start with 0 and then you add it to the previous number. So you start with 0 and then you go to 1. 1 plus 0 is 1, so the next number is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3, and so forth. Now, what happens, here's the interesting thing about that. 5 divided by 3 is 5, or 1.618. 34 divided by 21 is the same number. And it keeps coming up. In the Fibonacci sequence, you've probably seen it a lot. They have pictures of the inside of a snail shell or something, a conch shell perhaps. Okay, so this is where all this is coming from. Now, the reason I have this watch on, it's used in a lot of designs. This right here, this line, and then the inside of the glass is a golden section, because this is 1.618 times this. I don't know why, but it's a design element. And it's sort of an interesting thing. And so this was developed after the ellipse, the Golden Ellipse, so by Vacheron Content 10, 1972. All right, so let's take a look at the Golden Ellipse. The Golden Ellipse, this is the 50th anniversary. They started back in 1968, and 50 years they've been making them. This year, the new one came out, and it was the gold one with the black dial. Now, they've had those before. The other one that's like it, they had, I think, came out last year or a few years ago, and this was platinum with the blue dial on it. All right, these are fairly pricey watches. The platinum one is $50,000, the gold one is $30,000, or $30,000 and change. The size of them is about almost 40 millimeters from lug to lug. and 39.5, and the width is 34.5. So that'll give you an idea of the size of this. It's a very, very, very formal watch. It's one of those watches you would wear at a formal, either formal workplace or some kind of formal occasion. Now, in trying to find a golden eclipse, I couldn't find it. I did everything I could with this, and I could not find the golden ratio. And that is that one side is 1.618 times the size of the other side. You can have at it if you want, but I looked everywhere. Everyone they keep talking about even Patek Philippe, but nobody said, well, here's where you can see it. So it's sort of an enigma, and it's a fun thing to play around with. But I tried all of these different sides and was unable to dig it up. But we'll just take their word for it that there's some kind of a golden eclipse in there somewhere, or at least a golden section. All right, it runs on the caliber 240, which has a micro rotor, and it runs at 21,600. That's 3 hertz. That's vibration per hour, 21,600, which is a speed I tend to associate with your better watches. And so this is a picture of the front and the back of it. All right, now. Here are some watches. They have the 1968 one. You can see that on the far left with the blue dial, the gold case, and the gold band on it. And then all the way up to 2018 was the one we just looked at. Now, there is an anniversary model. I don't know what it costs, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. Very elaborate one with almost impossible to read. And on the back it has Ellipse d'Or, which is Golden Eclipse in French, and they have 1968 to 2018. So if you got more money than I have, you can have at it. But you can see all the different, not all of them, but a lot of the different models of the Golden Eclipse. Now there's like a guide that I found in, I think it was Quill and Pad online. They had this chart, and it may have been a chart. I'm pretty sure they did. I get a subscription to the Patek Philippe magazine, and it comes out every so often. And unfortunately, like a lot of magazines, when I'm finished with them, out they go. But this has the entire history of it. So you can, if you take a look, you can probably find this online somewhere and make it big enough so you can see all the sizes and all the different shapes and so forth that the Golden Eclipse has come in, and all the different versions of it. The interesting thing about this is that if you're looking for one and you're thinking of buying it, this chart will help you a lot to spot the date and so forth, other information about it that you may want to use. All right, now, and looking for good deals on this, I went to the Chrono 24, and what I found there was about right around just under 5,000. You can find one. Like I said, you're talking about watches that they start at $30,000. So, something under 5,000. Some pretty good deals. The first one there is called Ye Olde Timekeepers Inc. I found it on Etsy, ETSY, and then I tracked it down to a place in New York. I think they also have a place in LA and Singapore. Anyway, there are some different things. Is that with Chrono 24 and everything else, it's always buyer beware. I can't say I recommend it, but on the other hand, I've had good luck with them. So anyway, so here is a way, for an entry level to very high horology, and it's a watch. Like I said, it's not that popular of a watch, but it's something that comes within at least hand grenade range of what we might be able to afford. Now, this next one I want to look at, you may never have heard of, and they made them at least until 2008. They may have, I mean, they may have sort of pulled back on them. And there were two versions of it, and it's called the Neptune. Now, this first came out in 1996, so it was sort of a flash in the pan. And this is what Patek Philippe said about it. It says, ideal for sportswear, the supremely elegant Neptune is at the same time the perfect dress watch. Now, you got to remember, there's that the Aquanaut and the Nautilus were also being made, and I'm not quite sure where they saw this. This could have been something they saw, well, this was even less formal than either one of those. At the time, I think they were, both Patek Philippe and Vacheron Constantin 10 were trying to introduce some sports watches to keep up with the very successful Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. But this is one that they had two models. This is the first model. It's reference 5080, and it runs on a caliber 315 SC. It's 36 millimeters, so it's relatively narrow for today's standards. There's no exhibition window in the back that you can see the movement with. And it came in basically, well, it came in more than two, but the ones, most of them were either the salmon color or the black. Those are the two main ones they had, but they did have some white ones. They had four Roman numerals, one at 12, 3, 6, and 9, and then they had the minute numbers in between those. And there's at 3 o'clock, there's a little date window. Okay, the bracelet on this thing, I love the bracelet. It's just the coolest looking bracelet. Very, very nice one. They had another one called the 5081 that was like the 5080, except it was gold. And I don't know what else they had in it. There's a picture of the caliber 315 SC. The thing about that caliber, it's a pretty slim caliber for an automatic, especially with a great big rotor like that. But that was one of the more saving graces of this was the movement in it. The same movement at the time was used with the Nautilus and the Aquanaut too. So it's an interesting watch. The second one that they made, this was just a few years later. I think this one may have come out in 1998. I'm not positive. There's very little information on the Neptune, by the way. There are some articles, and I read them, and one of the things you'll see one article, and everybody else seems to copy them. They're not exactly reliable as far as research is concerned. Okay, well, these two. This is the 5085. Now, this was a lot different. It had a power reserve indicator. It had a 31-day calendar on it. It had a moon phase. Both of those have a moon phase. You can see it where there was inside of the date, I guess, subdial. And so this was a very cool looking watch, and it went from 36 to 37 millimeters, which is a little bigger. And I think today, as they're going back down from 45 millimeters, this one may be a very interesting one to have. The caliber in it is called the 240 PS. Now, the thing about this caliber, it uses a micro rotor, and it has the same frequency, the 3 hertz, 21600, power reserve indicator, 48 hours, and then it, like I said, it has a micro rotor in it. There's a picture from the back. Now, this is where things get tricky. It appears as though there is an exhibition window, but I've seen other pictures of this without an exhibition window, so I'm not sure what's going on exactly, but This watch is probably much more comparable than what we think of as a modern high horology sports watch than the 5080 version. All right, now in looking for these, the best buy I could find was on a place called Etsy, and it was 53.11 38 cents. Now, usually what that means, it was translated from some other currency into dollars, and they came up with that amount. In this case, I believe it was pound sterling. This was a shop, I think it's in London. They said West End, I believe West End of London. And that price was the lowest I could find, and it has a salmon dial. The other two, there's one that's salmon, and that's about 7,000, and the other one's 10,000, also the 5080. Now, at the bottom down there, there's one for, that is the reference 5085 with the power reserve indicator and the moon phase and all of the other stuff on it with a black dial, and that one's 16,900, almost $17,000. So you're getting up there with these pretty quickly. But for like I said, I call them Cinderella watches, primarily because they weren't very popular. And this particular one, the Neptune, was canceled sometime about 10 years ago. I'm not exactly sure when they decided we better quit making it. I think with the Nautilus and the Aquanaut, they figured, okay, we got enough, and this is sort of in between both of them. But to me, they represent a very interesting buy if you're interested in this, in having a Patek Philippe, and especially a sports watch. There's, like I said, the best deal I could find anywhere was 53.11, which is turned out to be, I'm pretty sure it's this place in England. Okay, well, so here you have an entry level, two things, an entry level into Patek Philippe, and you have a couple Cinderella watches. Neither one of them is greatly popular. I have never cared for the Golden Ellipse. The more I look at it, the more it's been growing on me, though. I got to tell you, it's not so bad after all, especially when I learned about all of the geeky stuff behind it. All right, well, and if you got any comments, I'd really like to hear them, because these are two very different kinds of watches, and whether or not something like this would be appealing to you or not. Also, too, you're getting very high quality. I mean, you may not like the looks of them, that's okay, but they're Patek Philippe quality watches. And finally, as always, this is an invitation to subscribe if you like. And like I said again, please leave your comments. So until Sunday, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection.